What's something you witnessed, scary or otherwise, that you still can't explain to this day? Story 1. I never met my father-in-law because he passed away when my wife was only 10. She says he used to play Brown-Eyed Girl and dance in the kitchen with her when she was little. The song means a lot to her and her mom. When my first daughter was born, that was the song that came on the radio the first time my mother-in-law met the baby. For our second daughter, it played on the hospital speakers right after she was born. Pretty cool. Answer. A little late to this, but one of my mom's ex-boyfriends passed away years ago. When he passed, she was already married to my dad. Jim was her ex-boyfriend's name, and he would play that song for her a lot. The years following his passing, she would hear that song during specific occasions similar to what you described, but also sometimes just catching it on the radio too. She'd tell Jim hi whenever she'd hear it. I think it's really sweet, and I do feel it's Jim saying hello. Just like your father-in-law saying hello to you and your family. I'll tell her about your story. She'll love it. Story 2. This just happened recently. I was driving home around dusk. Headlights were on, but there was still some daylight, enough to see. On the shoulder of the highway, 2 kids were walking. There were no other cars, so I moved over a bit just to be safe. As I passed them, one of them turned her head to look at me. I watched them, a bit creeped out by 2 kids walking along an empty highway. As I passed them, I glanced at my side view mirror to keep an eye on them. And they were gone. A quick glance over my shoulder showed an empty highway. In a movie, I would have stopped to look. In real life, I hit the gas and didn't look back again. Story 3. This one isn't huge, but it is real, and my husband and I think about it a lot. One time I was at urgent care to get an injury checked out. My husband was with me, as he usually is for anything medical. The waiting room when you walk in through the door has a long counter at the front, chairs surrounding a TV to the right, and on the left there, a little divot in the wall where more chairs rest in front of a bathroom door. It's a single-person bathroom with no windows and only one door. We were sitting in some of the chairs close to the bathroom door. It was kinda in its own micro hallway, and the only exit from walking out of the bathroom was to walk past my husband and I. After sitting there for a while, a man walks in with his wife through the front door of the waiting room. They don't go to the check-in counter, but rather talk right in front of the door for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute. I didn't hear what they were talking about. The woman nods and leaves through the front door, and the man pauses to look around the room once he's alone. I assume she was dropping him off to get checked out. His eyes meet the door to the bathroom, and he walks straight there instead of checking in. Going inside and locking the door, my husband and I continue to wait there. 5 minutes pass, 10, 15, 20. We waited there for a long time, and he never came out. However, I think we've all had times where we spent a good hour in a bathroom, so we just assumed maybe he had a stomach bug. Later, a woman from the waiting room goes up to the bathroom door to use it after the man had been in there for about 30 minutes. She opens the door no problems. The lock suddenly wasn't engaged. And she goes in to use the restroom, coming out a few minutes later and going back to her seat. My husband and I looked at each other confused. He went to look in the bathroom and the man wasn't there. There was no other windows or doors to leave out of. The man was just gone. Not a trace. We never did figure out where he went, but we do think about it fairly often. Answer. Had something just like this happen on a train. 3 other people and I all saw a man with a hat and briefcase go into the bathroom and lock the door. Another guy walked up after a few minutes and tried the door, but it was locked. Approximately 10 minutes go by, and now there's 2 people waiting by the bathroom door, and 3 of us seated near the door are kind of watching because one of the people waiting is getting visibly impatient. Another few minutes go by, and then a new person walks up, tries the door, and it's suddenly unlocked, with nobody inside. That guy with the hat and briefcase definitely just disappeared. There are no windows in the train bathroom, no hatches, he was just gone. Story 4. When I was 17, my parents finally let me ride my motorcycle to school. In my country, you can get your driver's license as soon as you have your ID card. One day, on my way home, I made a classic dumb teenager move. A train was coming, and I tried to beat it across the tracks. My tire slipped, I panicked, and the train started blasting the horn. Out of nowhere, this old man appears and literally lifts me and my bike off the tracks just as the train barrels past. It happened so fast I could barely process it. My knees were shaking like crazy. I turned to thank him, and he was gone. No trace of him anywhere, even though it was a wide open area with no place to hide. Did he sprint away? Seems like he evaporated to thin air because it literally half a second passed since he lifted me to safety. Almost 14 years passed. Even writing this now gives me goosebumps. Story 5. In the very early 90s, I was backpacking through Egypt and spent a good deal of time in Dahab by the sea. Accommodation was very sparse, a double bed in a 10 FT x 12 FT room. One time I woke up in the middle of the night with a guy dressed up in a white Navy uniform complete with medals standing at the end of my bed. I yelled, "No, go away," at him, and he disappeared. Story 6. I've got a couple. When I was little, I was playing by the dumpster at my apartment complex, and a dog ran up, and I swore with all that was within me this dog said hi, my name. So I took this stray dog home, immediately exclaiming that I was Dr. Dolittle. The very next morning, our complex was full of cops because a little girl had been abducted the night before from the playground dumpster area and was missing. They found, I think, her bike and shoes in that same dumpster. The second was on a Halloween. I was driving to go to the movies on speakerphone with my friend in a massive car accident. Happened all around me. A tipsy driver did a head-on collision and tried to flee the scene. I felt the other cars hit my car, but I had covered my face screaming. Well, my car didn't have a scratch, not a dent. My car was covered in broken glass. It even came in through the windows. I was just sitting there boxed in by 4 cars in a fatality, and other severely injured accident with EMS looking at me like it was a miracle. But I had been so bounced around I couldn't figure out how nothing hit my car. My neck and chest were slightly red from the seatbelt. I sat there for hours in the scene. Because the other cars were totaled and there had been an ejection. But my CD player that had never worked started working, all of a sudden playing in loop go, Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac. I ended up having to get a new radio as it would never play anything other than that song. I still have the CD. Story 7. In Myrtle Beach, camping near the beach, my grandpa told me to come outside of our camper. When I did, I looked up in the sky to see what looked like a small orange fireball, just darting back and forth through the sky for a minute, and then hovering about. After what felt like a minute of this, the fireball all of a sudden shot out in the direction of the ocean, going what looked like 1,000,000 miles an hour, and then disappeared. I wondered, and still do wonder, if it was a military flare or something, but I truly don't know. Answer: this reminds me. Several years ago, as a youngster, I was at Edisto Island, South Carolina, sitting on the beach house deck with my great uncle looking out over the ocean. It was near dark. I hear him say, "What the hell?" and I look up. Way off in the distance, smack dab in the middle of the horizon, just over the water, is a glowing orange ball with dark red rings around it. The orb and the rings expand, contract, and then, just like that, they're gone. My great uncle says, "Did you see that, boy?" I say, "Yeah." "What was that, Uncle Bill?" And he says, "I sure as shoot don't know." And that was that. We didn't discuss it anymore or get any explanation. Story 8. When I was a kid, we moved into a new house. All the bedrooms were upstairs. My sister and I were home with our mom. Dad was at work. All three of us were at the bottom of the stairs talking about something when a DVD that was in my room, up the stairs and around the corner, literally flew down the stairs. It didn't roll down the steps or slide down, it flew in the air right past us. Then 10 minutes later, my mom made my sister and I bring our laundry up to our rooms. I was scared shitless. Answer: I had something similar happen to me once. I was with my stepmom and brother in the living room of our new house, and she asked me to go into the nursery to grab a diaper, wipes, and the changing mat. When I walked into the room, something felt off, so I stopped. When I stopped, a book flew off of a stack of moving boxes set against the wall and landed right in front of my feet. It flew about 3 or 4 feet. I stepped over it, got the things she needed from the closet, and ran back out of the room. People kept saying it must have just fallen off the box, but it wasn't on the edge or anything, and I wasn't remotely near it. It flew like someone threw it, almost like a frisbee, but without any rotation. And that wasn't even the scariest thing to happen in that house. Story 9. I can't explain it, but I do have a good guess. November 17, 2023, at approximately 5:20 a.m. to 5:36 a.m. I stepped out onto the front porch. It was very dark. I really like to see the stars. It's pretty. I see a triangle silently pass over the house. It was lit up with circular lights on 2 edges. As it passed over the house, it was bigger and bigger, almost the size of half the house. I was fascinated and then scared, so I went back in. There is an Air Force base not more than 60 miles away. The silence was scary. Story 10. I lived in one town and my girlfriend at the time lived in another. I was 19 to 20 and living back at home with my parents, waiting to ship out to basic training on a delayed entry program, and my POS car was constantly breaking down, as was the case here. So, I was hanging out at my GF's house that evening, and she was going to drive me home. Well, technically, I drove, but it was her car. Anyway, we decided to take some back roads to be able to have some more time together. It was around 10:01 at night and just a little foggy, but I wasn't worried about that because I knew those roads very well. Then we get to an intersection where I have to stop first. I do so, and then, just as I start going, I slam the brakes on. Something was screaming at me not to go that way. I sat there for a few seconds, and I started shaking, but I was getting ready to keep going when my GF asked me to turn around and go back the main way. I was young, cocky, and invincible, of course, so I'm surprised I didn't insist at that point on going ahead. But it was like everything in my body did not want to be on that road at that time. As soon as we started going back the way we came, I felt like a weight that I hadn't even noticed was lifted off of me. I was still shaken by what I had felt and the fact that my GF obviously felt something off as well. We spend the 25 minutes or so from there to my house in complete silence. No talking, she talked constantly. No music. We both put music on anytime we went anywhere, even if it was so low we could barely hear it because we were talking. But this time, and I don't even know how it would have happened, because the radio was always on. The radio was turned off completely. We were both, I think, too afraid or embarrassed to say what was going through our heads and just thinking about it to ourselves. Here's the kicker. As soon as we walked in my front door, my mom was sitting on the couch and immediately cried out, "Oh, thank God," and got up and actually hugged us both. She then said that about a half hour earlier, she had all of a sudden gotten this sick feeling in her stomach and was absolutely certain that we were in some kind of serious danger. This was before cell phones were really prevalent, so she had no way of getting in contact with either of us once we left. She said she tried to call GF's house, but the line was busy. We always had to fight with her younger brother and younger sister to talk to each other on the phone. So she had just sat there and waited for the phone to ring to say that something had happened to us. To this day, when either my mom or I brings that up, we both get chills and both start to break down and can't continue the conversation until we change the subject. In fact, it's probably been 10 years since we have even tried. TLDR. Was driving home with GF, got a really bad feeling, turned around and went another way, got home only for my mom to say she pretty much had the exact same feeling at about the exact same time. Edit to add, I realized I didn't say that my GF ended up staying for about an hour to calm her nerves. I made her call me when she got home to know everything went fine. That was very important to me at the time, and kind of feels like I should add that part. Story 11. My little brother was a douchebag, and he'd frequently take my car without my permission or putting gas into it while denying up and down that he did so. The kicker is, he was almost always smoking or drinking, so he could have really put me at risk. Dumbass would put the parking brake on when he parked despite the area I park being near flat, so I always knew when he took it. No one else did this. About 5 years ago, I woke up from a vivid dream of being in agony in my bed. I could feel my consciousness dying bit by bit, a pressure in my head building as it all slipped away. It dragged on for many hours, and when I awoke, I knew something was terribly wrong. I found out hours later that he was brain dead after having a heart attack caused by a cerebral hematoma. Somehow, I had dreamed his final, conscious moments on this earth. When his shell was allowed to die several days later, I went to my car to go out. I had taken it out the day before, yet when I got in the car, the parking brake was on. I saw a vision of him pointing at me and laughing in that obnoxious way the boy from The Simpsons does. Nelson, maybe? Ha 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 ha, before disappearing. There's no chance I put the parking brake on, and no one else in my family does this. It may not be scary, but it sure as shoot isn't something I can explain. Story 12. I was driving through Casper, Wyoming 3 weeks ago. I needed to meet a friend on my way through for a minute, and we decided to meet near Menards in the south end of town. As I am driving up, I swear to everything that on the right side of the road I witness a full tree render from the ground up out of nowhere, just like in a video game, right in front of me. It's wintertime, so no leaves or anything like that. But I had to stop the truck and gather myself because it was so shocking. Strangest thing I have experienced in a long time. Story 13. I was in my 20s and my then boyfriend and I were at his parents' house. Just the two of us and the family dog. He was opening mail in the dining room and I was rinsing a glass in the kitchen within sight of him about 15 feet away. We were talking and suddenly came loud footsteps overhead. Stomp, 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 stomp. He froze and I looked at him like WTF. But the look on his face was not confusion or panic. Oh no. It was, oh shoot, now I have to tell her the house is haunted. So then he let me in on the family secret. Some entity, it had a strong masculine energy to me, lived in their attic. BF's mom had tried nailing the crawl space door shut, placing typewriters in front of it, etc. Always got reopened. And the dog would refuse to go upstairs unless carried directly into one of the bedrooms. Answer. Me and my family also lived in a place like this. There was an upstairs which was just one large room, and at the bottom of the staircase was a door. Multiple times every day, there was somebody walking around up there. Loudly. The steps would even go across the entire room and down the stairs. You could count the footsteps making their way down. We kept that door shut for obvious reasons, and whatever it was would always stop one stair away from the door. We could open the door and look, but there was never anything there that we could see. It sounds like your boyfriend's mom took it. Better than we did. We made it about 2 months before noping the hell out of there. I've always wanted to get hold of whoever lives there now and see if they have the same experiences. Story 14. Worked at a tanning salon when I was a teen. It was in the basement of an old 70s apartment building. Since the very first day I worked there, weird stuff would occasionally happen. Faucets in the bathroom starting on their own. Customers would say we knocked on their door or shouted their names while they tanned. Some customers were longtime clients and had all sorts of stories about it being haunted. Like most salons, we had cameras that monitored the hallways, front, and the computer system told me which beds were in use, clean, dirty. So I'm alone one day, and I walked to clean a bed in the back. Hallway. It's a long hallway with rooms on each side that ended with a door to the laundry room. As I walked into room 6, right next to the laundry room, I took note that the laundry was done. The laundry room door was open with the light on, and I could hear the dryer stopped. Now I'm in the room cleaning the bed when suddenly I hear a door slam so loudly. I jump, thinking it's a tanner or something, even though the door definitely didn't buzz. No, it's the laundry room door. It's closed and the light is off. But here's the thing. You cannot, in absolutely no way, slam that door. The floor in the laundry room is all warped by the door and it drags and sticks to the ground. You have to pull it really hard to get it to close. I stood there for about 5 minutes trying with all my might to slam that door and recreate what just happened. Not happening. That's when I totally freaked out and ran to the front and refused to go back there again all night. Story 15. I had my hat sitting on the dash. My windshield wipers were on, as it was raining a bit. I was driving, and out of nowhere my hat lifted up. Not a whole lot, but like it was flicked, almost as if my windshield wiper picked it up. My girlfriend saw it too, and was just as puzzled as I was. I don't know what happened, but it didn't do it again. It wasn't a bump, and it wasn't the vent. Story 16. I used to live in this apartment, and at one of the doorways, this 4-foot shadow person thing would constantly peek out into the living room, and no one in our family talked about it until we moved out. And we all found out we knew it was there, but never talked about it for some reason. I wish I lived in it when I was older and iPhones were common, because I'd have recorded the hell out of that thing, but people probs still wouldn't believe me. Story 17. A building I used to work in was haunted. I could explain the giggling girls in the basement ladies' room as plumbing noises, although I can't explain why you could clearly hear them from outside, almost being able to make out what they were whispering and giggling about, and the noise stopped and went away the moment you opened the bathroom door. Once you opened the door, the noise would be gone until some other evening. What I never came up with an explanation for was the menacing, creepy old guy that would stand behind my car, blocking me from backing out of the parking space. He only ever appeared in the rearview mirror. If I turned around to look at him, he would be gone. I originally assumed it was a reflection of the parking lot lights, but it didn't matter where in the lot I parked, he would still show up. It got so bad I stopped looking in my mirror before backing up when I was leaving late at night. Story 18. When I was a kid, I desperately needed a few dollars for something important to me. Being poor, I didn't bring it up with my mom or dad, knowing they don't have any to give me. I turned to my grandma, who died a few months ago, and fervently praying, "Grandma, please find a way to send me 10. Please, please. I love you." Over and over. Nothing happened. I guess I was disappointed Grandma didn't bother producing a tenner. That evening, I was reading the mandatory reading from school, something super boring, and wanted to skip to the last page so I can claim I finished it. There it was between the last page and cover of old 10. This was a library book I had with me all summer. Thank you, Grandma. Story 19. Had some experiences when I was a kid living at my parents' house. Was using the computer late at night in the office room, which had portraits of each family member on the wall behind me. I heard a crash, turn around to see my portrait had fallen. It was the type that had a string on the back, so the frame was hanging on a nail stuck to the wall. The nail was still intact, so I didn't know how the portrait would have suddenly fallen. And of course, of all portraits to fall in that way, it had to be mine. Laying in bed, I would sometimes hear breathing near me. I thought I was hearing my own. Breathing so would stop momentarily, and still hear the same breathing. This led to a habit of sleeping with a radio TV on to drown out the sound. When my family moved out of that house, I never experienced anything similar. So, whatever it was, I guess it decided to stay. Answer: one house we lived in when I was a kid had these cheap vinyl curtains in the spare bedroom. The house was situated east-west, and the prevailing breeze was almost always from the north. This caused the curtains to be gently pulled against the window screen and then relax. All night long, it sounded exactly like breathing. I took to lifting my head and letting it drop onto my pillow, repeatedly and sort of violently, until I fell asleep. My mom thought I was autistic. There were other things about that house, but that really sticks in my mind.